What is up, everybody, and welcome to the third edition of the ZLDR. My name is Ian Sagstetter, and I will be hosting this today. So we're just going to highlight some of the events that have happened in the crypto ecosystem over the last week. And if you're a terminally online person like myself, you're able to watch what is likely the biggest and worst car crash that I've ever seen on crypto Twitter, and I could not look away. So if you are not familiar, oh, by the way, newsletter is going to be in the description. If you need to check out all the Zcash specific news from last week, click on the newsletter description and get up to date on everything Zcash with Zec Weekly. So if you are terminally online like myself, as I just mentioned, you saw that FTX Group has commenced voluntary Chapter 11 bankruptcy proceedings in the United States. So what this basically means is if you had money on FTX or FTX US, or I believe any of their associated apps, that essentially you can no longer access your money. The exchange itself is insolvent. And this was a really stark reminder for everyone in the crypto industry that when you trust these centralized entities, they are not they are fallible. And is that a good word to actually use? Let's Google fallible. Capable of making mistakes. Yes, fallible is a great word. So they are fallible. Sorry, I need to go back to university and retake an English course. But they are fallible. They are capable of mistakes. And the entire premise of crypto and this entire promise that we have is that you can become financially free and you can be independent of centralized intermediaries. I actually went back and read the Bitcoin white paper kind of when all of this is going down. I very weirdly read it as like a reminder for some things sometimes. And the entire premise of that white paper and kind of the things that have been built on top of it or built after it is that we need to have the ability to intermediate or not have intermediaries within our own financial lives and financial infrastructure, and that we need to have another option opposed to centralized banking systems. And when you look and you watched FTX blow up, it was this stark reminder that there is a lot of value in self-custody and kind of controlling your own assets and controlling your own destiny in the sense. I went to a party after all of this kind of happened, and some people came up to me and were saying that, oh yeah, like crypto definitely needs regulation and, you know, there needs to be more oversight into what these organizations are doing. And I responded, you know, respectfully, but I was like, crypto did not fail here. There was no crypto blockchain, cryptocurrency infrastructure that failed in this situation. What was happening is that there was a centralized entity that committed fraud, and it cost a lot of people a lot of money, and it hurt a lot of people. And this just kind of shows you that while there are more trusted organizations, like if you can get your money out and you have the capability to self-custody, and you can help and teach people how to self-custody, that's a really important thing to be doing right now. And I think that's a mistake I've made. I've been a little too lenient with some of my friends, family, etc., and saying that some of these organizations can be trusted, when in my opinion, very few or if any of them really can't be trusted, because you need to have the ability or teach the ability that the people that they can really have ownership of these things. And that's the big promise of crypto. So I think this is a really big thing that just kind of made the entire week shit. And like the fallout of this entire debacle is just going to be very continuous over the next few months. But I think it's just a really stark reminder that as people who are using these things every day, and as people who really understand the inner workings of these systems, or not understand the inner workings of the systems, but understand how to do things relatively safely, we should probably go out and try to instill more independence into the community, in our local communities, not like just going on crypto Twitter and saying like self-custody everyone. Like, I think if you're on crypto Twitter and you're not self-custodying, like there's probably a disconnect there, and there's probably reasons for you not doing that are beyond understanding why it's important. I think it's actually more important to go out into our local communities, interact with people, and teach people to self-custody within that regard. I think for me personally, I find that like much more interesting and more empowering. So going to talk more about that at the end here. That's going to be my little spiel today, but this is obviously a big part of the news, so I wanted to touch on this first. It made the entire week shit, but we did have some updates. The Zcash Foundation did release their Q3 2022 transparency report. If you are interested in learning how Zcash Foundation is using and managing its funds that it receives from the Zcash Development Fund, check that out. The link to the PDF is on their website, I think, if you go all the way. Yep, here, report, link to the bottom of this thread, so go check that out. Also, Zcap, the Zcash Community Advisory Panel began, the Zcash Foundation, began polling the Zcash Advisory Panel, Zcash Community Advisory Panel on which candidate for the open board seat should be selected for the open board seat. So if you are interested in, or if you're a member of Zcap and need to vote, I highly recommend that you do that. The poll is open through 9 a.m. UTC on November 21st. If you go to this tweet that's in the newsletter, you can check out the YouTube video where both candidates were asked a series of questions. You can go watch that video and decide who is a better fit and better candidate for that open role, which will have a huge impact on the future of Zcash and the Zcash Foundation. So if you're a member of Zcap, really recommend going and checking that out and getting your vote in as soon as possible. Oh, and sidebar, I am now a member of Zcap, so that's really cool. Thank you to Roommate Musing for nominating me. Appreciate it. Also, and thanks for ZF and anyone in the Zcap. I don't know how that I got accepted, so thank you to everyone there too. So really, was really happy about that actually. So I did get my vote in, and I will not be saying who I voted for because I'd like to keep that private. Also, so moving on. Sorry for the tangent there. The winners of the Electric Coin Company's Zcash 6th birthday giveaway were a Cypherpunk Zero collectible toy and 5 Cypherpunk Zero NFTs were given to members of the community who participated in the giveaway from the Zcash Twitter account. Those have been selected, and they will be receiving their prizes. I believe they may have already received their prizes. If not, it's going to be definitely by this afternoon. So massive thanks to everyone who participated. If you weren't familiar, the winners had to follow Zcash, retweet the tweet, and then also provide why privacy is important to them. So it was really cool to see a number of different members of the community just come out and describe different reasons for why privacy is important to them. I think the biggest recurring theme within all of this, no one really said it was really cool to kind of go through the responses because no one really said oh yeah, it's because I don't want the government or Big Brother seeing my stuff. It was just more of this everyday thing of hey, we want privacy because we want to have that option in our lives for when we want to make some things private. And using Zcash and a shielded wallet is a great way to do that. So it was really cool to see how all of those normal instances really correlated with just this overarching idea of privacy, which has been a little bit demonized in the past, but really cool to see how people just really think of it from a very normalized perspective. So. Oh, also, this is really cool. There was a proposal in the Zcash forum that came out for a Zcash-specific podcast. And obviously, we've hosted a few episodes, and we're actually planning on doing 4 to 5 more over the next 2 months. Been a little busy, so haven't really had time to sit down and really do those. It actually, for people who don't know, it takes 7 hours at a very low level, right? So not like doing a ton of advertising or doing a ton of communication comms around it. It takes about 7 hours to record, listen to, timestamp, and then also do some edits for some clips for the podcast. So it's actually a little bit harder of a lift than I think a lot of people realize. You're not just recording. The recording is an hour and a half to 3 hours, and then actually more than 50%, more than half of the work is just kind of managing that and getting it out there to people and kind of reviewing it. So it's really cool that a new Zcash podcast is potentially coming on the horizon. There was a grant submitted by, I forget their name, but it was submitted by someone who's run a crypto podcast. I think it's the Digital Cash Network, and they're going to host that podcast on that YouTube channel, which I believe has around 2,000 subscribers. They did a pilot episode with Nathan Wilcox from the Electric Coin Company, and I have understood, I have not listened to it, but I've heard that episode went very, very well. Just looking at getting the feedback from various people in the community and just looking at the infrastructure of the channel itself, I did actually support the proposal simply because the amount that the requesters asked for was $500 an episode, I believe. And I think anybody who's willing, who already has a relatively, big following for a smaller channel, I think that's a relatively good following, and wants to put in the effort to interview people in the Zcash community and is only asking for $500 an episode, for me, I personally think that's a complete steal. It probably is not going to take them 7 hours to do it. They can probably create a podcast a lot faster than I can, but the idea that there can be another communication channel that's getting more Zcash specific stories out into the open, I think is really, really powerful. And for the amount alone, I think it's just an absolute steal and no brainer. I mean, when I saw the proposal, I commented that instantly. So I think that it is a no brainer. I do support that proposal. Disclosure, that's my opinion, not ECC. It's completely my own personal opinion. But yeah, I think go check out the proposal. I'm going to actually check out, I'm like backlogged on a lot of Zcash specific content right now, but I'm going to go check out that pilot episode between that podcast and Nate Wilcox, and I'll probably provide some feedback on it when I have a chance. So overall, I think it's really cool that there's more communications channels coming into the ecosystem, and super, super excited for it. So back into the spiel. Self-custody. This was when FTX was having some issues. And today there was a big scare around Gemini, like the Gemini web infrastructure actually went down. So a lot of people thought Gemini were having like problems like processing customer withdrawals. That's not the case. Like withdrawals are, from what I understand on crypto Twitter, look okay and they look fine. So I also understand that Gemini is like a big partner and big supporter of Zcash. So I'm not saying that like Gemini's, like I don't have anything against Gemini at all. I think that exchanges are really important in the sense that they're going to help a lot of normal people onboard into the crypto ecosystem. But then again, they might not be the best place for everyone to hold their funds. So just looking at the example from FTX and then that potential scare today, I know that BlockFi is approaching potential insolvency. Like, we're being reminded here that there is a valuable lesson to self-custody. And if you're not comfortable with self-custodying, like use a trusted exchange that other people like are endorsing and speak really highly of. Preferably one that's has some skin in the game for a longer time than FTX had. If you're not familiar, FTX was like relatively new, and it did seem they were like trying to hyper capitalize the entire industry so they could make a lot of money for one specific agenda rather than forwarding the crypto mission. I think a big thing about an exchange is like if they're encouraging users to self custody, I think that's like a good pulse check. But like personally, I don't hold any of my funds like on an exchange, and I think like it's really important for users to understand like that importance of like why this option is a good thing for them. So let's just kind of break things all the way down to the beginning. Zcash has been coined as like Zcash is cash of Web3. So like think of it as physical cash. And if that's like its use case in this new crypto economy, then what good does it do sitting inside of a bank, right? It's not, the money that you have in a bank is not cash. It's money that you have in a bank, essentially an IOU. It's an IOU that if you went to go pull that money out, you expect the bank to have it, and you can pull all of it out in cash if you wanted to. And you can do other IOUs with other people, like spending a credit card, and like that's an IOU. Then you can pay off the credit debt with your own IOU. It's just like a very complicated system, but cash in hand, physical cash is not a complicated system. It's money that's worth something and you can go buy it. I think the underlying infrastructure is complicated, but that example, kind of shows simplicity. So if Zcash is cash of Web3, then why would you have it sitting in a crypto bank? It should be sitting in a crypto wallet where you can self-custody, own your private keys, and you can use it as you please within your own in a self-sovereign and preserving way. So we put out a thread last week when this whole thing was going down with FTX, and we said, hey, there's an exchange having problems. Like, luckily, I don't think FTX actually supported Zcash, so I don't think a lot of Zcash holders were hurt in this regard. But it's a really good reminder that, like, hey, this could happen potentially to any exchange. Let's dive into why we need to at least understand how we can self-custody if that's something we're comfortable with doing. So the first thing is we went through this video of just downloading a Zcash wallet. If you go into the ZecHub website, so that's zechub.xyz, we actually have an intro page on Zcash wallets, like on all the available Zcash wallets from, hardware wallets, mobile transparent wallets, mobile shielded wallets, and also like running your own node. And we do actually have like a guide to run like your own node using a Raspberry Pi 4. So if that's another option, if you want to like participate in securing the network, you can run your own node. But if you look here, the first thing you can do for most users is just go in and like create a Zcash wallet. In this specific video, we're using Y Wallet because it's like been performing really well with all the performance issues lately. So I would just like highly recommend that users right now use Y Wallet and they go and download it from like their app store, and then they'll have access to it. Okay. After you download your wallet, write your seed phrase down, piece of paper, whatever. write it, have a backup, store it in a really, really secure place, and just don't tell anybody about it. So that's another good thing to remember. Write it down, don't copy it and put it in your what's it called? In your notes app on your phone. Don't do that. The next thing is you go into your exchange and you run a withdrawal. So this is really simple. I think the biggest thing, like this is just another example of running a withdrawal from Gemini. So you just buy Zach, and then after you buy Zach, you can just go withdraw it into your shielded wallet. So it's not like a super complicated process. It's just clicking a few buttons. So we're not going to really highlight this. I think the big thing here is with Y Wallet and I think Y Wallet and Zach Wallet Lite both support tatters. Okay, sorry, tangent. The big thing here is that not every exchange, especially in the US, is going to support shielded withdrawals. So like Gemini specifically, you can withdraw from Gemini straight to a shielded address. If you're using Coinbase, you can't do that. So what you have to do when you open up a Zcash wallet is you have to go to the transparent address in the Zcash wallet. So if you click into this photo, you can, in Y Wallet, you just click into the QR code. And when you click into the QR code, it will then show you your transparent address. And if the transparent address starts with a T, that's the address you put into the exchange app to withdraw the funds. It comes into your wallet, and when it's there, after 10 block confirmations, you can then click a button. I think it's right under the shielded address, the transparent address. Yep, shield transparent balance. And then you run an on-chain transaction sending Zcash from your transparent address to your shielded address. And after that's run, your wallet is now shielded. Your ZEC, more rather, is now shielded and is embracing the privacy properties of a shielded Zcash wallet. So if you don't have like Gemini or something and you need to run a withdrawal to your wallet, use your transparent address and then just shield it right away. That's a really important thing to remember. And it's a really important thing that people kind of explain to other users who might not be familiar like with how Zcash wallets work, because there have been instances where I've heard that people thought they were using a shielded wallet and they were actually using a transparent wallet. So remember, transparent addresses start with a T, shielded addresses start with a Z. Always look in your wallet, see the address, and see which type of address is associated with your balance to make sure of that. So after you process that withdrawal, the funds are in your wallet, and that's pretty much it. And it's pretty simple. So the funds are there, and you can like spend it, you can hold it, you can do whatever you want with it. Just kind of remember that it's a really secure place to hold your Zach, and there are like obviously some risk associated with self custody. Mainly like if you lose the seed phrase or you let someone else have your seed phrase, like you could either lose your funds or lose access to your funds. So it's really important to like store that stuff securely and store that in a secure place and make sure no one finds it. I think the other thing too is like with Zcash, with shielded wallets, currently like hardware wallets don't support shielded ZEC. They only support transparent. So I think people have to kind of self-consciously they have to decide that for themselves. And I think you just have to kind of weigh all the trade-offs, like weigh how much Zcash do you have, like how much ZEC are you comfortable with, like living in a hot wallet, like on your cell phone that's mobile. Like I think there's a lot of things you have to consider when kind of managing that risk and deciding for yourself which is better for you. Personally, like I think that the killer use case for Zcash is, that it is cash. So just kind of for me, like how I gauge how much money I want in a hot wallet or a mobile phone wallet is typically, is it the same? Would I be comfortable with carrying this much cash with me, like on a regular basis? Like, would I be okay with carrying $500 or $1,000 or whatever, right? Like kind of setting that baseline for yourself is typically a good way to look at how much money you want in in a wallet on your phone or on a mobile device. If you want to keep it completely shielded and don't want to use, a transparent address, like another option I've heard people say is like, oh, I'm going to use another device, like not associated with my phone number or whatever, download the wallet there. So like maybe like a tablet or something, move the funds, secure the seed phrase somewhere, and then like delete the app off that device and never connect it to Wi-Fi. So like that's another option I've heard. So like they'll have like an extra device that's not associated with their like identity, and then they'll just delete the app off their device and disconnect it from Wi-Fi. So it's not connected to Wi-Fi like all the time. So that's another option I've heard people use. That's one I recommend sometimes if people are worried about keeping their Zcash on a shielded address. If that is a Not a really great way to do things. Like, please comment and please correct me. But it is something I've heard in the past. So if you just go into this thread, I'll actually just ping this into the description of the video as well. It's a really easy thread to kind of understand how to shield your Zcash in a wallet and how to self-custody. Remember, there's risks. Practice as good operational security as you can. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. Feel free to reach out to me on Twitter, and I can do my best to help you through. But ultimately, just as self-custody is, self-sovereign, you have to do it for yourself. I think the learning process as well is like you have to kind of go into good resources. We try to provide those as best we can on our website, but go into good resources and really just make the decision if it's the right one for you. If you don't feel comfortable with it, don't feel any pressure, but understand the risk associated with keeping your funds on an exchange and how they could potentially one day not be available to like withdraw them. And then understand the risk of self-custody, that if you lose your access to your wallet, just like if you lost paper cash in the real world, you're not likely going to get that back. So understand the risks associated with both and then just make the best decision for you. If you have any questions, feel free to let me know. Thank you guys so much for listening.